Come closer. The shadows have missed you, and tonight they have a new story to tell. Welcome to Scary Stories After Dark. The first sign something was wrong came when Pixie returned from the bathroom and found her tattoo stool facing the front door. She hadn't left it like that. No big deal, she told herself. She was probably just overtired, or Alonso bumped it while flexing his ego near the mirror again. But when she sat down, the cushion was warm, like someone had just been sitting there. The shop was silent, save for the low hum of the old beer fridge and the distant rumble of a cloudy October afternoon outside. The gloom felt extra thick today, like it had bones. Pixie pulled her black hoodie tighter and reached for her coffee. Her mug was gone. She scanned the counter, frowning. Seriously, if this is another one of Alonso's passive-aggressive coffee thefts, I swear to. Then she saw it. Across the room, sitting neatly on the waiting bench, steam still curling from the rim. She blinked. She hadn't left it there. No way. She was certain she'd left it on her workstation tray. She rose, slow and uncertain, and crossed the room. The lights overhead buzzed softly, fluorescent and off-color, like they were struggling to stay lit. One of them flickered as she passed beneath. Pixie picked up the mug and turned back toward her station. The stool was now tucked neatly under the table. Her hand trembled slightly. She clenched the mug tighter. "Okay," she muttered. "Either I'm sleep-deprived, or Annie started spiking the coffee again." Just then, the back door opened with a screech. Alonso entered, a paper bag in one hand and his gym bag slung over one shoulder. "Yo, you will not believe the jerk who tried to parallel park in front of the cafe. What's with your face?" Pixie turned slowly. "Tell me you moved my stool." He blinked. "No, why would I touch your stool? I'm not trying to die today." "And my mug?" "What mug?" She held it up. Alonso looked confused. "Didn't you take that into the bathroom?" "No." He rubbed his jaw, scanning her expression. "Are you okay?" Pixie looked around the shop. Everything was still, silent, but it felt wrong, like the room had just inhaled and hadn't exhaled yet. "Yeah," she said finally. "Just tired, I guess." She didn't see it then, but behind her, on the street, the mailbox across the road had turned slightly toward the window. Sinister's edge didn't get mornings. It got grayness, not fog, not mist, just a wet, sour-smelling haze that clung to your bones like regret. Pixie stepped out into the gloom, hoodie up, coffee in one hand, duffel over her shoulder. The air felt still, not peaceful, not quiet, still, like everything was holding its breath. The tattoo shop, needle and vein, was nestled beside the town's weirdest, loudest, and most beloved heart, Static Grounds, a rusted steampunk cafe with gargoyle mugs, heavy metal playlists, and espresso shots named after death metal albums. It was run by Annie, their third musketeer, 6 feet of sarcastic chaos, purple-dyed hair, and spiked boots that clacked like tiny thunder whenever she was annoyed, which was often. As Pixie pushed the coffee shop door open, a bell above it didn't ring. "The hell?" She glanced up. The bell was still there, but it was turned toward the wall. She frowned. Annie stood behind the counter, scrubbing an espresso machine that looked like it belonged in a Mad Max war rig. "If that thing moved on its own, I'm not fixing it," she called without looking up. "I already sacrificed 2 knuckles trying to replace the steam valve. It's a demon. I accept it." Pixie raised an eyebrow. "It did move." Annie stopped scrubbing, looked up. Their eyes locked. "Okay, well," Annie said. "Guess I'm sacrificing a 3rd knuckle then." Alonzo entered right on cue, tank top, hoodie tied around his waist, sipping a protein shake and still nursing a grudge from his encounter with an incompetent Parker. "Bench outside moved again," he muttered. "Swear it was facing the street when I walked in. Now it's pointed at the shop like it's waiting for something." Pixie and Annie both froze. Pixie said, "I had a warm mug yesterday that I didn't move." Annie blinked. "Did it taste haunted?" "Deliciously haunted." Alonzo rolled his eyes. "Look, I know we're all a bunch of tired weirdos, but maybe we're just losing it. Power outages all week, signal interference. Maybe we're glitching too." Behind them, the espresso machine hissed, unprompted. Annie didn't turn around. "That wasn't me." "I hate this town," Pixie muttered. "I live for this town," Alonzo said. "But also, no, I want a refund." Pixie wandered toward the front window, sipping her drink. Across the street, the mailbox was closer, just barely, by maybe a foot. Her pulse quickened. "Hey, has that mailbox always been that close to the curb?" Annie and Alonzo joined her. Alonzo squinted. "Nope, no, it has not." They stood in silence. Annie said, "Okay, so either the mailbox has legs or we're all brain fried." "No one's been by this morning," Pixie said. "The street's been dead." Annie tapped the glass. "Well, it's probably just the mailman messing with us. What's his name again?" Pixie exhaled. "He moved last month. There's no new guy yet." They turned back to the mailbox. It hadn't moved again. But now the slot looked slightly open, like it was smiling. Later that day, the cafe crowd was light, just the usual lineup of sarcastic misfits. There was Rhett, the cryptid conspiracy nut who wore flannel year-round and claimed the local water tower was a government bug. Jules, the barista who flirted with everyone and had at least 4 fake identities for fun. And Mr. Bagley, the retired librarian who came in every day to read Lovecraft, drink black coffee, and stare into space like he knew how the world ended but wasn't telling. They were mid-rant about why pigeons couldn't be trusted when the cafe lights flickered. Jules glanced up. Great. Power company's drunk again. The espresso machine screeched and spit a chunk of something black across the floor. Everyone paused. Was that part of a screw? Rhett asked. Pixie crouched down to look at it. It wasn't a screw, it looked like a tiny tooth, made of metal. Annie turned pale. No one spoke for a long moment. Outside, the clouds gathered thicker over Sinister's edge, smothering the sky like a damp wool blanket. The street lamps glowed faintly despite it being midday, a sickly greenish hue that shimmered like TV static. And just down the road, On a sidewalk nobody saw being poured, a new fire hydrant stood where there hadn't been one yesterday. It leaked something red. The sky had started to hum, not audibly, not like a sound you could hear, but a feeling, like metal vibrating beneath your skin. Pixie sat at her station back at the shop, needle gun quiet, her coffee untouched. The air inside needle and vein felt off, too still, the kind of silence that made you hear things that weren't there. Her station mirror looked hazy, like static rippled across the surface. But when she blinked, it was gone. She wasn't the only one feeling it. Alonso leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, tapping his fingers in that rhythm he always did when his nerves started showing. Double tap, pause, single tap, drag. "Something's wrong," he muttered. People keep walking past the shop, stopping and looking at nothing. Pixie glanced up. "What do you mean, nothing?" "They stop," he said. "They stare at the mailbox or the bench or a light pole, like something's talking to them. But there's nothing there." A low chill crept up her spine. "Rhett just left the cafe to take a call," Alonso added, voice dropping. He walked toward the bench. Pixie stood slowly. "And?" "He never came back." 10 minutes later, they found his hoodie on the bench, just the hoodie, still warm, phone buzzing softly inside the pocket, a call from Mom. Pixie stared at it, her stomach sinking into her shoes. "I just saw him," she whispered. "He was right here. He waved at me." The bench didn't move, didn't react. But it felt smug. Alonso swallowed hard. "You think he wandered off?" "No, he's not the wandering type. He was about to rant about his new cryptid podcast, and he left his coffee behind. Rhett never leaves his coffee." Behind them, Annie approached. "Weird question," she said, voice tight. "Did either of you notice that street lamp was taller this morning?" They turned. The street lamp loomed high above the sidewalk now, taller than before, its glow no longer a warm yellow but an electric white, sharp enough to make your teeth hurt when you looked too long. "I thought I was just losing it," Pixie whispered. "You're not," Annie replied. "The espresso machine won't stop whirring, even unplugged." Alonso turned back toward the bench. The hoodie was gone. None of them had touched it. That night, back at the house, the tension followed them. The house was a cozy rental, mismatched furniture, horror movie posters, shelves lined with tattoo books and coffee mugs. Their sanctuary, their little fortress of weirdness. But tonight, it felt off. Pixie was brushing her teeth when she heard it again, that heartbeat, thump, 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 thump. She turned off the faucet and held her breath. The sound was coming from the bathtub drain. She backed out of the bathroom slowly, flipping the light off, heart racing. Alonso passed her in the hall, half dressed for bed, hair still damp from a shower. "You good?" She nodded too fast. "Just tired." Annie was already curled up on the couch, surrounded by pillows and a horror DVD playing low on the TV. "There's a new fire hydrant outside our driveway," she said casually. "Wasn't there yesterday?" Pixie sank into the armchair. You sure? Yeah. It's closer now, too. Almost at the sidewalk. Hydrants don't move, Alonzo said. Annie shrugged. Neither do benches, or lights, or stools, or mugs. And yet... No one laughed. The TV flickered. Then the power went out. Total silence. Darkness swallowed the room, the kind that didn't feel empty. It felt crowded. Pixie reached for her phone, screen black. Guys, she whispered. Anyone else feel that? From the far end of the hallway came a soft scraping sound, like metal legs unfolding. Later that night, Pixie's dream. She stood in a field of antennas, rusted and twitching in the wind. A distant hum filled the sky, a low frequency she could feel in her jawbone. And standing at the center of it all was something tall, inhumanly tall. A creature shaped like a transmission tower, made of rusted metal and flickering lights. Thin, long limbs made of antennae and signal cables. A skeletal face made of black mesh screens, sparking. It turned toward her. She couldn't move. Its voice came in a burst of radio static. Thank you. And when she looked down at her hands, she was holding a remote, her thumb on a button that read, Broadcast. She woke up screaming. The next morning smelled like burnt ozone and metal. Pixie sat on the porch, watching a stop sign vibrate, just a little, barely noticeable, like it had the chills, or was breathing. She didn't say a word, just sipped her third coffee and stared like she was daring it to blink. Annie opened the door behind her. Please tell me you're watching that too. Pixie nodded. It's been twitching for 5 minutes. Alonzo stepped outside, gym bag over his shoulder, sleep still crusting one eye. The treadmill turned on by itself at 3 a.m. and ran until sunrise. The whole garage smells like melted rubber. No one responded. A breeze swept past. The stop sign stopped twitching. But now it was turned slightly, facing the house. Later that day, the shop felt electric, not in a fun, tattooing good vibes kind of way, but like someone shoved their nervous systems into a wall socket and cranked the voltage. The tattoo guns kept vibrating on the table, despite being unplugged. Alonzo reached for one to move it. It jumped slightly. He dropped it instantly. Hell no. Pixie frowned. You saw that too, right? It flinched. Tattoo gun flinched. That's not a thing. In the corner, their apprentice, Maya, looked pale. She had just turned 21, full of glitter eyeliner and don't mess with me sass. My armrest was in the wrong corner when I came in, she said. I always put it by the window. It was near the bathroom. Everyone stared at her. Thought I was going nuts, she added. But then I found a footprint on it, bare, wet, and it wasn't mine. Silence. Alonzo turned slowly toward the bathroom door, still closed, still dark. Maybe it's haunted, Maya said half-heartedly. Pixie shook her head, voice low. Haunted things don't grow. At Static Grounds, Jules didn't show up for her barista shift, which wasn't that strange. She'd skipped for weirder reasons. But this time, she texted. Just one message. The stop sign is talking. Annie tried calling. It went to voicemail. Mr. Bagley came in, ordered his usual black coffee, and sat facing the window. Didn't read today, just watched the street. Rhett was still gone, Jules now too. And across the street, the bench was gone, completely vanished. Annie stood frozen behind the counter. Okay, someone needs to say it. Say what? Pixie whispered. We're not paranoid, Annie said. We're being hunted. That night, they packed overnight bags, tried to leave town, didn't even make it to the highway. The roads looped. Pixie drove in silence while Alonzo sat shotgun, holding his breath, and Annie muttered directions from the back seat. Left on Hollow Pines, right on Sable Road, then hit the gas on Briar Patch. But no matter what turns they took, they kept ending up at the same four-way intersection, same dead traffic light, same crooked mailbox. The street sign at the corner had changed. It now read, Return. Annie clenched her fists. That's not even clever. They turned the car around. The engine stalled. Then something tapped on the back window. Alonzo looked. There was nothing there, but when he turned back around, the rear-view mirror was gone. Just missing, cleanly removed. The plastic socket was still warm. Later that night, back at home, everything was too quiet again. They didn't turn on the lights. They didn't dare. Static crackled softly from the outlets, like whispers, like breathing. Pixie sat on the floor of the hallway, knees to her chest, eyes bloodshot and distant. I think I did something, she said. Annie turned. What do you mean? I found something, Pixie whispered. In the basement, a week ago. It looked like a remote, old, rusted, like Cold War tech, weird label on it. I didn't know what it was. What did you do? I pressed the button. Silence. Annie's voice cracked. Why? I thought it was broken. It said broadcast. I thought it was junk. Alonzo stared at her. You broadcasted something? Pixie nodded slowly. And now I think the town is waking up. They found Rhett on a Tuesday. Well, what was left of him. Half of him was fused into the sidewalk near the west roundabout, just embedded, like concrete had grown around him mid-step. His mouth was open like he'd been screaming for hours. The rest of his body, twisted and drained, was frozen in mid-reach. No one saw it happen, no witnesses, no blood. Just a street lamp above him that seemed to flicker with glee. The town held a candlelight vigil that night. Pixie, Alonzo, and Annie stayed home. They didn't trust candles anymore. The living room was dim, lit only by a single oil lantern Annie had found in her grandmother's attic. Even its glow felt nervous, like it wanted to run but couldn't. The house creaked softly. Pixie barely blinked. Her eyes were locked on the floor. The concrete ate him, she whispered. Alonzo paced. We need to get out. Now, walk, crawl, whatever. Something's sealing this town shut." Annie sat cross-legged on the kitchen counter, arms folded tight. "It's not just outside anymore." They looked at her. She didn't blink. "The mirror in my room, it's not right." Pixie's voice came out shaky. "How?" I looked in. My reflection blinked out of sync. Then smiled. "Okay, nope," Alonso said. "I'm done. We are breaking every mirror in this house." "I already did," Annie replied. It laughed when I shattered it. Silence. The lantern sputtered. That night, Annie couldn't sleep. She sat curled up on the bathroom floor, a blanket around her, oil lamp burning low beside her. She couldn't bear her room, not with the missing mirror and the shadows that moved when she blinked. The vent in the ceiling creaked open. Something whispered, "Don't look." Her breath caught. She turned slowly. A small handheld mirror sat on the bathroom sink. She hadn't put it there. She hadn't seen it there before. It reflected nothing, just static, soft hissing, like a dead channel. Her hand moved toward it without thinking, like something inside her needed to touch it, needed to see. She reached out. Pixie yanked the door open. Annie gasped like she'd just come up for air. I didn't." Pixie saw the mirror, grabbed the towel bar, smashed it. Glass exploded across the tile like blood droplets. They both stared at the floor, breath ragged. "Thanks," Annie whispered. The next day, the town was quiet, too quiet. A child was reported missing from the elementary school, last seen in the hallway. When they searched the footage, it was just static, and her backpack? Found inside a vending machine, still zipped shut, unopened, blood on the coins inside. Pixie walked home from the shop that afternoon and passed 3 street signs. They now read, "Watch, wait, submit." She didn't look back, but she heard one creak behind her. That night, the dream, Pixie found herself standing in a field of wires again. But this time they were moving, snaking like roots beneath her feet. Above her, suspended in a black sky of static, hung the beacon, a towering shape of cables and antennae, spindly and insect-thin, its head a mass of signal lights that blinked like dying stars, its long limbs dragged behind it like anchors made of screaming feedback. It reached toward her. Its voice wasn't sound, it was felt. "The signal lives because of you." She fell backward into darkness, woke up gasping, and across the room her phone screen glowed white. Just one word pulsed on it. "Transmit." They tried again. Backpacks, water bottles, maps from the pre-Google era. Alonso even grabbed a hand-drawn compass off the wall like they were prepping for a damn apocalypse. The moment they left town, the sky changed. Not dark, not bright, just flat. Colorless, gray, like being trapped inside an old TV. The roads began to double back, the houses repeated, trees reappeared where none had been before. Pixie slammed the brakes when they passed the same dead fox on the shoulder for the 3rd time, still untouched, still bleeding from the mouth. Alonso looked at the trees. They weren't trees anymore. They were metal poles, dozens of them, thin, spiraled, some tipped with antennae. "Is the forest becoming a tower?" he whispered. "No," Annie muttered from the back seat. "The town is becoming one." An hour later, back home, again. The street lamps buzzed louder now, not light but static, a noise you couldn't hear with your ears, only your teeth. Inside, the house had changed, just slightly. The wallpaper was wrong. The hallway was longer than it had been yesterday. An outlet blinked. Alonzo kicked it. It hissed. "I hate this," he muttered, wiping sweat from his face. "I keep having dreams I'm made of wires." Pixie collapsed on the couch. "I keep having dreams that I'm inside the signal, like I'm part of the broadcast, like my skin is the screen." Annie stood near the window staring at the power lines. One of them twitched, like a vein. Later, that night, Alonzo was brushing his teeth when the bathroom mirror fogged. He hadn't turned on the hot water. He leaned closer. The fog wasn't condensation, it was inside the mirror. A message began to smear itself across the glass from the inside. "Let go." He backed away slowly, heart hammering. The bathroom door slammed behind him. The mirror shimmered, and suddenly his reflection wasn't moving. It just stood there, smiling. Then the TV in the living room turned on by itself, volume maxed, static. Alonzo ran out, eyes wide. "TV's possessed." Pixie grabbed the remote. Nothing worked. Then the static spoke. "Alonzo." It wasn't a voice, it was the sound of his name stretched into hissing, low and metallic, like a dead signal gasping through a throat made of wires. He collapsed to his knees, hands clamped over his ears. The static kept whispering. "Too late. Thank you. Stay." Pixie unplugged it. The TV stayed on for 6 more seconds, then the screen cracked. After midnight. Pixie couldn't sleep. Something itched behind her ear. She reached up. There was a wire coming from her skin, small, black, hair thin, leading into her pillow. She ripped it free with a scream, blood on her fingertips. Alonzo and Annie rushed in, saw the wire, still sparking on the sheets. They didn't say a word. They just stared. The next day, Pixie tore down a warped poster in the hallway. Behind it, the drywall looked wrong, like it had been replaced recently. Curious, she grabbed a knife, cut through the paint. Inside the wall wasn't insulation. It was paper, dozens of aged, yellowed blueprints, schematics covered in ink, wires, antenna markings, and a map. At the center of the map, Sinister's edge, drawn like a motherboard, buildings marked as circuits. The cafe, labeled amplifier, their house, command node, the tattoo shop, origin point. Pixie dropped the paper, her hands were shaking. "We didn't move to this town," she whispered. "We were placed here." Pixie dreamt of needles, not tattoo needles, wires threading into her spine like they belonged there. Her skin peeled back, not blood, not bone, but copper filaments and blinking red lights. She could see herself from above. Being dissected by a figure made of radio static and rusted bolts, wearing a crown of antennae, its voice crackled in waves. Improvement. She woke up screaming. That morning, none of them spoke during breakfast. Alonzo's protein shake was shaking on its own, just gently, like it was nervous. Annie's toaster growled. That was the only word for it. Growled. Pixie stared at her reflection in a spoon for 5 full minutes before saying, "It blinked." Alonzo dropped his fork. "Okay, I've had it." He went to his room, grabbed a box of tattooing supplies, and came back with needles, ink, and leather straps. "We go analog," he said. Annie blinked. "What are you?" "We mark ourselves. No machines, no digital. Old school ritual style." His eyes burned. "If we're inside a signal, we become static interference." Pixie nodded. "We ink ourselves with chaos." 2 hours later, their skin stung. Alonzo carved blackout sigils onto his chest with thick analog strokes, each line meant to confuse digital readings. Pixie inked a twisted frequency spiral around her neck, done entirely by hand. Annie drew a broken eye symbol over her sternum and whispered, "Try watching me now, you metal freaks." The moment the last line was finished, the house shuddered. Lights flickered, not off, but inwards, like they were being sucked into the walls. And from the vents, something hissed. "No." That afternoon, they followed the map. The blueprints hidden in the wall showed a place on the outskirts of town labeled Receiver. It was an abandoned auto garage, burned down years ago, but still standing like a skeleton. They snuck in through the side, floor coated in ash and oil. There was a car in the center, a corpse inside. A man, face frozen in terror, one arm shoved into the car's stereo, not resting, inside, like the stereo had eaten him. His fingers were fused to the oak's port. His veins looked like wires. Pixie dry heaved. Annie cried. Alonzo didn't blink, and then the stereo turned on. White noise. A slow whisper. "Home." They ran. That night, Annie started acting strange, pacing, jittery, twitching like she had electricity under her skin. Pixie tried to talk to her. She wouldn't respond, just stared at the static on the TV screen like it was telling her a bedtime story. Alonzo unplugged it. Annie didn't move. He turned to Pixie. "Something's wrong." "I know." They put her to bed, locked the door, but at midnight, she was in the hallway, sitting, smiling. She whispered, "The beacon says thank you." Then collapsed, convulsing. Pixie and Alonzo held her until it stopped. When Annie opened her eyes again, she was back, but she didn't remember it. Not the stereo, not the garage. Not even her tattoos. The town had stopped pretending. No more subtle flickers. No more whispers in the wires. Now the signal screamed. Static buzzed through the clouds overhead like a pulse. Cars stalled mid-drive. Phones oozed sparks. Traffic lights blinked in alien patterns. No red, only green. Always green. Go, go, go. But to where? Pixie, Alonzo, and Annie stood in the basement of Static Grounds. Blueprints spread across a dusty concrete floor. "This is it," Pixie said, voice hoarse. "The blueprint calls it the blackout lever, a manual override hidden under the cafe." Alonzo paced. "You're telling me our death metal espresso joint has a kill switch for an evil sentient broadcast signal?" Annie rubbed her arms. "I mean, kinda tracks." Pixie knelt, hands trembling. We need to get under the floor. There's a trap door. It's supposed to be welded shut, but... She paused. The floor beneath them began to hum. Then, tick. A screw rolled out of the corner and stopped at Pixie's knee. Alonzo backed toward the wall. I don't like that. That's a no from me. Suddenly, every electrical outlet in the basement screeched, a sound like 1,000 dying modems. Then, crack. The trapdoor ripped open, not lifted, not unlocked, ripped from the inside, underground. The tunnel was tight, rusted, lined with thick cables that moved like muscle. Pixie led the way, flashlight shaking in her grip. Annie kept muttering the lyrics to a Slayer song under her breath, her mind barely holding on. Alonzo paused at a junction. He turned his flashlight left. Nothing. Turned it right. A phone cord shot out of the wall and wrapped around his ankle. He screamed. It dragged him halfway into the darkness before Pixie lunged, grabbing his arm. Annie tackled the cord with a rusted metal pipe, slamming it again and again until it screeched and went limp. Alonzo collapsed, gasping. They're inside everything. Pixie pulled him up. We have to keep going. Deeper in. They reached a rusted chamber, the air thick with ozone and cold. In the center, a chair, not for sitting, for merging, metal arms, a head brace, cables that pulsed with life, and behind it, mounted to the wall, a single red lever, above it, carved in scorched steel. Blackout. Annie stepped forward, hand shaking. This is it. Pixie didn't move. She stared at the chair. Alonzo noticed. Pix, what's wrong? Pixie's voice was barely a breath. I recognize it. What do you mean? I designed it. Silence. Alonzo blinked. You... what? Pixie stepped closer, eyes wide and wet. It wasn't supposed to do this. I was part of a freelance build team, just hardware, testing. I didn't know it was alive. I thought it was just a weird Cold War signal test. Just data. Annie's voice cracked. You built the broadcast. Pixie nodded. I hit the button 2 weeks ago, thought it was junk code. Nothing happened until now. Alonzo backed away. So we're in this mess because you woke it up. No, Pixie said, stepping toward the lever. Because I created it, and now I'm going to end it. The walls pulsed, the chamber flickered, and from the cables above, something began to descend. A towering silhouette of rusted limbs, antennae arms twitching, static pouring from its skeletal mouthpiece like black tar. The beacon, its signal screamed through every bone in their bodies. Pixie dropped to her knees. You cannot shut me down, it roared, not in words, but in feeling. Alonzo tackled Pixie behind the chair as the beacon lunged. Annie screamed and hurled the pipe at its core. It passed through it like mist, and yet the static glitched. Now, she shouted. Pixie grabbed the lever, pulled it down. Nothing. The beacon's lights flared red. Too late. Pixie screamed and pulled again. This time, it clicked. The power cut. Everything went black. Silence. No static. No hum. No lights. The town of Sinister's edge fell silent, like it had never existed. Epilogue. 1 week later. The trio sat on the cafe roof, wrapped in blankets, watching the gray October sky. Phones were gone, power grid fried. The cars never worked again. The town remained, but quiet, still. No signs of life, except them. And when Annie opened her eyes that morning, she found a wire under her pillow, thin, black, still twitching.